right, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. I'm going to go in first and check the live stream and put my posts up while people are just starting to come in. I think that's maybe more appropriate. So I'm going to do that first. And make sure we've got. So I'm going to do that. We got plenty of sound and picture. I'm going to get my posts up while people are coming in. It's not going to take long. I think people get mad when I do it when they're in here. What happened? Almost there. Okay. Getting there quick, guys. I'm almost ready. I'm going to get my email address up there. Okay, getting there quick. Okay. Got it up. Being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise, and then we'll get going. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So, we're going to talk about, is Israel going to very shortly do a raid into Syria and grab a big swath of land near Israel. We're going to talk about the power plant, a substantial power plant that had an explosion and burning. Basically, it looks like kaput power plant. At about the same time, in the same location, there was a 4.0 earthquake registered. And then we're going to get into some spiritual warfare techniques, applications, and I'm going to keep illuminating you so you're not ignorant of Satan's devices. Okay. A lot of this will be based on scripture, and a lot of it will be based on my many decades of spiritual warfare. And you can always test it out and see, you know. Remember, Mark 16, I think it's verse 16 or 17, it says, "These signs shall follow them that believe in my name, they shall cast out devils." If you're a believer, why haven't you cast out devils? We'll get into that. Okay. So what are the crazy events happening around Syria? Well, one thing is America has been withdrawing their troops out of Syria, and they just evacuated, I believe it was their biggest base in Syria near the Conco oil field in northeastern Syria. They took all the troops out and they consolidated them in another base, and then they took 40 trucks of equipment out of there. While they were doing this, they had fighter jets flying overhead to protect them and probably protect the convoy till it reached the other base. And then they used explosives on the ground and demolished the base to ground level so it couldn't be used. So we could clearly understand America is not very fond or trusting of the HTS, Hotel Tango Sierra government in Syria. Last night, Israel conducted a massive amount of airstrikes in Syria. It was huge. The biggest, 2 days ago was the biggest ever, and last night was bigger than that. It was really lots of aircraft, lots of bombs, lots of strikes, predominantly military targets. They were not trying to kill personnel or civilians, and they didn't really do so. So what is going on? Well, what it looks, compounding with this, Netanyahu says we're going to enhance the war in Gaza. And we're calling up, now I'm getting two sets of figures. We're getting one set of figures that says we're calling up 70,000 reservists, which I think are going to be reporting for duty today, tomorrow, so very quickly. And I'm hearing 70,000 and I'm hearing 80,000. For the purposes of our discussion, it's not going to make much of a difference. The HTS government had a force of 70,000 when they took over, and they absorbed some other people into it. So they probably have between 80 and 100,000 now. Okay. But their tanks are antiquated. Their aircraft is what aircraft? Do they have drones? Nothing to speak of. Do they got air defenses? Yeah, they fired at our planes yesterday. Not the attack last night, the attack the night before. They were firing at our planes with missile defense systems. So they know something's coming. They're not that dumb. They're committing genocide, but that's not really the big thrust of it. It's a factor. But what it is, it's an alibi for going into Syria. And I have to stand back and say that the Israeli government is very brilliant in this. They don't need an extra 70 or 80,000 soldiers to go into Gaza. What in the world is there to go in to that you need ground soldiers for? The place is a shambles, a wreck. What do you need it for? You don't. You have tanks on the ground, armored personnel carriers, some infantry. There's a lot of soldiers already there. I'm sure at least 70 or 80,000, and and people saying, well, when they initially attacked Gaza, invaded, they had 300,000. Yeah, it wasn't a rubble heap then. And they hadn't destroyed a bunch of tunnels, and they hadn't destroyed a lot of weapons and missiles and depots, and they hadn't done targeted assassinations on probably just about everybody that had any kind of leadership role. So yeah, they don't need that many extra soldiers. Why? It's going to be aerial attacks, artillery. That's what it's going to be. So that just doesn't add up. While they're giving us this alibi story about calling reservists up to go into Gaza, they're every day attacking in Syria. They're blowing up old bases from Bashar Assad, weapons depots, weapon factories, weapons this, weapons that, ammo depots, supplies, logistics, command, communication, anything they got is being destroyed. So what is the likely outcome? Politically, I'm not sure, because I don't think the Israeli government is sure. They'll have to go in militarily, and then they'll come up with a plan for the political. What I mean by the political is, how much land is Israel going to confiscate or annex or incorporate into Israel? The alibi is going to be the Jews, which are definitely being persecuted by various groups inside Syria that are not incorporated into the HTS government, but the HTS government is working with them and trying to disguise this, but not doing a good job. And these people are chanting that they want to do a wipeout of the Jews because they're not the right kind of Muslim. These are militant terrorist Sunnis, like the guys that run the government. They're from Al Qaeda and ISIS. They put a new paint job on them, and that's it. But they're still the same idiots. They've been persecuting Christians, taking their houses and cars away, killing and persecuting Alawites, another kind of Muslim that Bashar Assad followed, that belief system. So these are genocidal lunatics. And obviously Biden put him in charge. Probably if Kamala won the election, instead of Trump, she would have started giving them financial aid in the billions, military aid, and stuff like that to build them up as fast as possible so they could attack Israel. Okay? Now, Turkey has a base in central Syria. I'm not really feeling that Israel's going to start a war with Turkey. And I'm not so sure Turkey's ready to start a war with Israel either. I could be wrong. These are end times. But what I think Israel's plan is to solidify a larger piece of territory than they have now in southwestern Syria, where a lot of Jews live. And then there'll be a cry for the Druze in the other parts of the country to move into this section. Now, that being said, there's 600 to 760,000 Druze. So let's say 700,000. Let's just take a pot shot at it. There's no houses for them and all that stuff, no jobs, no work. So that's a kind of goofy program. So what they may just do is eliminate the HTS government altogether. They've weakened them very, very substantially. And when they go in, they'll probably do something in the name of helping the Druze. And these Sunni factions that are not part of the government will rise up against Israel. But with what? They don't have aircraft, they don't have missiles, they don't have armor like tanks, mobile artillery, they don't have a navy, what are they going to do? Shoot at us with AK-47s and watch them ping off the tanks? What are they going to do? These HTX derelicts are so dumb that they captured a few leftover helicopters from Bashar Assad. And they went on YouTube and were watching videos about how to fly the helicopters to get them off the ground. I mean, that's how dumb they are. Many of them probably don't have a high school education. Some might not even have a junior high school education. I'm not saying some of them could barely read and write. Yeah, and a lot of them may not even read or write at all. So, how do you deal with this? We're gonna have to watch and see how it unravels, because I don't think Israel knows how it's going to go yet. Israel probably has plan A, B, C, D, E, F, something like that, Since a lot of this fighting is going to be in and around Damascus, we may be looking at Damascus shall be a ruinous heap. I would say there's a high probability that we're going to see that in the coming days. That's a Bible prophecy figure. A statement, a Bible prophecy quote. Damascus is the capital of Syria. 2 days ago, we dropped a very large bomb 400 meters from Giuliani, the president of Syria, the HTS character. And it was a big bomb. So it must have caught the attention. Well, anyway, it got their attention. So HTS knows what's going on. They're trying to make peace with Israel. We'll do Abrahamic Accords. But you got to stop fighting in Gaza. You got to get out of Syria. It's stupid demands like the Iranians do. The moron stuff, right? I don't know who would come to the aid of HTS in Syria, other than the Sunni Muslims that are crazy terrorists inside Syria. Maybe Turkey. that would pit Israel against Turkey. It could happen, but I'm not looking for it to happen. Fighting in Damascus is a long, brutal thing with boots on the ground. The Israeli public isn't going to put up with that. So it would have to be bombings. They would send notice, this is to civilians, leave this area, go to this area, we're going to blow this up, and stuff like that. There'll be humanitarian aid crisis over there. There'll be a lot of healthcare crisis. A lot of fires. And Israel will try to keep the deaths to a minimum of civilians. They'll try real hard. And I'd say this will go down any day. See, it doesn't accomplish everything if they just take this area that goes in almost 40 miles into Syria that we already are occupying and protecting the Jews there and other people there that need protection from the HTS government and the crazy Sunni terrorists that the HTS government is very cooperative and friendly with. This could explain why Trump is pulling the troops out of Syria and closing bases and fortifying, consolidating the troops in a base and, stuff like that. It may not be an Iranian attack, it may be this. The troops would be very vulnerable to the Sunni militant terrorist groups in Syria and go after the bases. The two events coinciding are not a coincidence. The fact that America was flying fighter jets over Syria during this thing might mean that America may actually get involved in this thing, getting rid of HTS. Trump's been rather silent about them and their genocide. So maybe he figures it's time to do this. It's a mess, guys. And I don't know how it's going to finish. And I'm rather convinced that Israel's not sure how this is going to go yet either. We may wind up with all of Syria. And America may like that, and America might be thinking, well, we don't need any bases there anymore. Israel will take it over. They're not going to bother us in the oil. They'll let us do whatever we want. So that could happen. Maybe Israel's going to manipulate the situation so America has to pull out of Syria, and then we grab the oil. Now, if Netanyahu conquered Syria, and got the oil so that it would be Israel's oil, people in Israel would leave him alone and they wouldn't want to see the Supreme Court or the Attorney General prosecute him because of the oil. We pay $8-9 a gallon, $3 per gallon tax. So Netanyahu's first idea, if he got the oil, would be to tell the Israelis he can't bring it into Israel for some reason. You know, he would try to hurt us economically, make the country stay poor, and, you know, all that. He doesn't want Jews moving here. That's against his doctrine. And he opposes God. So he wouldn't want that. It's hard to say. I mean, we had the oil in the Sinai Peninsula for a few years, and America made us give it back. Maybe, looking at the way Trump thinks and how he's dealing with Ukraine, with the minerals and metals, maybe he's telling Netanyahu, you take this oil. I don't need the oil. You take it. You run it. And then when you need weapons, pay for it. And I'll be happy to sell them to you. See? That's what he's doing with Ukraine. No more aid. All the weapons you want, just pay for it. So then Netanyahu would buy another 50 F-35s. When it's all said and done, we're going to wind up with 75 of them. If, prophetically, we ever get there, which I doubt. And then will come more submarines, which I think he would get from Germany. What else could he buy from America? Well, more bombs, more bullets, more tanks. I don't know. We make our own tanks. I don't know. Well, Trump and him will find stuff out. You know how to do it. Now, what do they do with Turkey? I don't know. If Trump and Israel lean on Turkey, Turkey will cave. So that might be easy. And they might give Turkey a swath of land up by the border, 15, 20 mile, 25 mile buffer zone. And Erdogan may just cut his losses or his gains and just pull out and say, okay, I got my buffer zone. The Kurds will stay there. They're not a problem for Israel, really. The Jews will stay there. It's going to be a very interesting week. We'll probably see a few days of more airstrikes. And then more problems with the Druze and the HTS government and the Sunni crazy militia groups. And then ground forces will start going in and armor and all this. The HTS government may not oppose us physically, like fighting with us. Then what do we do? I don't know. You see, there's going to be a lot of variables that Netanyahu doesn't know. Nobody knows till it starts unraveling. Or if Netanyahu tells them, listen, you got to resign, you're a bunch of genocidal idiots from Al Qaeda and ISIS, get the heck out of here, and you got 48 hours to leave. They're not going to leave. Maybe they would, I don't know. But I don't know who would help them. Russia? Nah. Russia was never that fond of the base. I don't think so. Iran? Nah. They hate HTS. The Taliban? I doubt it. That's a big, expeditionary war that I don't think they would do. Netanyahu might say that we're going to annex this part of Syria and make it part of Israel. Of course, keeping the old Syrian side of the Golan Heights had to get annexed too. In other words, cut a large swath of land in Syria, at least 40 or 60 miles, maybe 100 miles, and call it Israel. And then we put a fence up, keep military there. The Druze would help us. They would join some sort of Syrian Druze defense forces Israel helps them put together and arm them and equip them. And they could probably easily raise 30, 25, 30, 40,000 soldiers. And they would run the border there. If they need help, they just pick up the phone. Our jets are there in seconds or minutes. It's real easy to cover it. But who gets the oil, The price here is the oil. But if Trump had serious plans of keeping the oil fields, he wouldn't be evacuating his bases, would he? He'd be fortifying them. But the bases are turning into something he doesn't need anymore. So he's evacuating them and closing them down. The world's going to go nuts when this happens. The Muslims are going to go crazy. But what are they going to do? Now we got to talk about the Houthis. Last night again, drone attack in Israel. We took it down every day. The Americans keep their ships, the warships, out of range of the Houthis' anti-ship missiles and other kinds of missiles. Well, they can't keep out of range of these long-range ballistic missiles they shoot at Israel. But I don't think there's much of a chance of them hitting the ships. And they keep bombing and bombing and bombing, and it doesn't stop. At some point, the Pentagon generals are going to get through to Trump. And they're going to tell him one of two things. We got to go in on the ground, which would be an absolute insane move for Trump. It'd be extremely stupid. Maybe 100,000 soldiers could handle it, maybe. with a lot of helicopters and aircraft carriers, missile launching ships all over the place. Yeah, maybe. Okay. This is crazy. Let's take a look at the live stream and see if I'm getting any questions here. People want to say they love Trump. Let them say that. I don't mind. That's what they believe. Let them state it. Let's see in the long run how Trump does. Thank you to my mods for being here and helping. Will it calm down and head into a full world war? Well, the whole thing put together, India, Pakistan, Ukraine, Russia, Iran, America, Iran, Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, China, Taiwan, North Korea, South Korea. Yeah, that's going to be a world war. Not seeing any ceasefire peace deals coming to pass. The Russia-Ukraine thing is still ongoing. They're knocking each other's lights out. See, if Israel takes over Syria, we inherit a lot of garbage. Okay. But we could turn it around. I mean, if we wanted to, but I don't think we want to. I think we want that oil. Well, we could take two regions and connect them. We could take the area we have now that we're occupying in southwest Syria, and then take another area where there's Druze and Kurds, like the oil fields, where there's Kurds mostly, and take that, and then we'd have to make a connecting piece of land. We could do things like that. There's really nobody that's going to come in and help HTS. Where you think Chile's going to come in, or Mexico, or Indonesia, or no, nobody's going to come. It's very interesting, very prophetic, because we'll be getting more land, and we'll see Damascus be a ruinous heap. HTS is not going to like Israel coming into Damascus. No, Israel may stop before we get to Damascus. Guys, I'm really sure Trump, Netanyahu, and all of them put together don't really know what's going to happen. It's not. They're not going to know until they do it. It's just too confusing, and lots of things like that. It's not going to work. We use Syria. We fly over there, and then we cross into Iraq, and then we attack Iran. And Iraq doesn't have much to fight with. Now, the problem could be that Iraq could come attack us in Syria with the help of Iran. But would Iran be dumb enough, absolutely moronic enough to mobilize a large military force from Iran to Iraq and then come into Syria while America's banging at their door? We want to kill you. No. They're not going to do anything. They're scared to death. Okay, let's switch to Iran. We saw the performance of B-2s, F-18s, various aircraft in Yemen that belong to the Americans, and it's been at least 6 weeks of constant bombing. Plus, Biden was doing it before that, and they have not neutralized the Houthis. We had similar problems with Hamas in Gaza, where we did a lot of bombing and artillery, and then we went in on the ground and we stopped it, and that's what will be needed to stop it. But Trump would have to mobilize, what would he need? He'd need probably 2,000 or 3,000 special forces to mess with them while there's a ground invasion, and at the same time extensive air and artillery attacks. And they would do a lot of cool things, a lot of sabotage, a lot of kidnapping of high-value targets so they could be interrogated and find out where the underground facilities are that are the most valuable to the Houthis. And you would have a lot of Navy ships there, which is pretty much the case now, and aircraft there, which the fighters could come off of the aircraft carriers, and the bombers could come from Diego Garcia. That's no big deal. It's already set up. And maybe they want to provoke Iran into doing something to save the Houthis, which is their last real lunatic, psychiatrically, criminally insane proxy. The Iraqis are scared. The Iraqis are just sitting there with their border with Syria fortified and just hoping they survive these events to come with Iran and Syria. They're not in any mood to start up with an aggression. If Iran sent 150, 250,000 soldiers with tanks and armor and artillery and everything into Iraq to push into Syria, then Iraq would probably go for it. But nah, they're not going to do it. The most junior, war college professor would tell you what an idiot move that is. America would love it. Maybe that's why they want to have Israel invade, to draw Iran out. It would not be hard to wipe their army out in Syria. They're not dug in with the fortifications that they have in Iran. It's boom, 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 boom. Soldiers, body parts flying all over the place. Tanks destroyed. Vehicles destroyed. Many weapons destroyed. Everything destroyed, destroyed, destroyed. And it would break the morale of Iran. The power plant likely was sabotage. They did activate their defense systems. That means air defenses. So maybe we blew it up with our stealth F-35s. My take is no. It's following a pattern of the past few days where we hit that, the port, and there was a weapons factory. I think there was 2 other targets in the immediate area. And not only did this power plant go, but a cardboard factory in the area broke out into flames. What this cardboard factory did, and it was really a cardboard factory. It wasn't a drone factory. They took recycled paper. They took waste paper and they recycled it into cardboard. That's what it was. And that material is highly flammable and it probably caught fire. Now, could it have been sabotaged? Yeah, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. it's a low value civilian target. Why? It makes sense. It probably caught fire. The earthquake. People that live in Iran were telling the media that it did not feel like an earthquake. It felt like an explosion. The place of the earthquake and the timing of the earthquake was with the blowing up of the power plant very close on both counts, timing and distance. Having gone through a large amount of earthquakes in my life in California and having experienced large bombs going off, I can tell you the difference. When they would drop heavy ordnance in Syria, I don't live that far from Syria, closer to Jordan, but not that far from Syria. What we would experience here, if we were outside the house, we would feel pressure in our ears. Now, was it like, ow? No, you were lightly or slightly aware of the pressure in your ears. Not a big deal. But the window frames would shake and the doors would shake, but not like an earthquake. Once, just, it's quick. Earthquakes, when you hear an earthquake, when you hear the earth rumble or like sifting sand. I've been through a lot of them. And they last, a 4.0 wouldn't last long, but it would last longer than an explosion. What's not long? 3-4 seconds? When the big quake went off in California, that broke the Bay Bridge, the Oakland Bay Bridge, and broke overpass freeways in San Francisco and split the streets, and the gas lines went crazy and all of that. I was about 30 to 40 miles away, something like that, living there. And I felt it. And this sucker went probably 15 seconds. And I was sitting in a family room, living room, whatever you want to call it. And we had a door that went to the patio, to the backyard, and it had an aluminum, around it, and it had the glass sliding doors. And them suckers were moving this much either way. That was, I think, high sevens, 7.9 or something. It was up there. People saw the ground open and looked down in the ground. It threw we had a 40-foot swimming pool there, and we had the water flying out of the swimming pool. The water was flying out of the toilets. Okay. But when you hear the bombs, and I've heard a lot of bombs go off in Syria and felt them, and I've felt a lot of stuff here in Israel during the October 7th war to date, And there is a big difference between an explosion and an earthquake. If you've been through enough earthquakes and you've been around big explosions, you know the difference. They do register on the Richter scale. This is a known fact, not in dispute. So did we do an air attack? Did we drop some 2,000 or 5,000 pound bombs on the power plant, or was it sabotage? I think it was sabotage. But I could be wrong. It could have been an aircraft. I'm sure we did it. And that's another power plant that's biting the dust. So what does it look like to me they're doing? It's similar to what we're doing in Syria, where America can't really attack the nuclear facilities. They built them, I'm going to explain this to you. They built them in the side of mountains. Okay, they found natural caves way down from the top of the mountain. They went in the cave, excavated it with heavy equipment, built it up, and then built down. Okay, and some of these facilities got 1,640 feet of rock in the mountain over them. How the heck are you going to penetrate this? A 30,000-pound MOP, massive ordnance penetrator, or an MOAB, mother of all bombs, ain't going to go that far. These things can do 200 feet of hard concrete, reinforced concrete. They can't go that far. You can put a chain reaction in. Some will say, well, we drop, MOPs, we drop one. Then these things can be, they're quite accurate, and they're surgically accurate, right? You would say. So that's a shooting term. If you're good and you could do headshots in the cranium, you would tell another gunner, surgically accurate with this gun, something like that. Okay, so they drop one MOOP, then they drop another and another and another. And when you get to 8 or 12, could they have gone down deep enough to wreck the nuclear facilities? Well, the Latin term for this is a priori. And what that means is before experience. Unless America went and found a mountain someplace, right? And put heavy concrete facilities, excavated a cave and put multiple layers of concrete in it, which they didn't do. It would take years. We don't know, and America doesn't know. They could sit there with the scientists and run computer models all day long. But, that's a computer model. Is it possible that a series of these bombs will do the trick? I'd say it's likely. Because the blast and the shock would probably cause earthquake avalanche type effects. And it would weaken the structure. It would just be a matter of time. You got maybe 4 do it, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 22, depending how far America wants to go and how many of these things they have, which I doubt. They might have 20 or 30 or something. Maybe they don't even have that many. Before you do that, you got to knock out the radar. And that's very dangerous because Iran has a large amount. Now, it might be 100, I don't know, a large amount of mobile missile launches that they modified the missiles into anti-aircraft missiles. So you've got a cab, like a Peterbilt or a Mack truck, right? Not an F-250, okay? I mean, serious truck. And you got a very special low-boy trailer that has 1 or 2 missile launchers on it with 1 missile in each launcher. And it has its own radar, and its own radar is probably not good for more than 60, 70, 100 miles, something like that, right? But it could certainly defend the site. But this mobile missile launcher with its own radar running off a generator is very difficult to target because the sucker's highly mobile. Can they shoot a missile while they're moving, while they're mobile? No, they can't do that. But they could keep the thing driving around. What if they go put it under a whole network of trees? How are you going to find it? Put it in an underground garage or a ramp down under the earth, So when there's an attack, it comes out and then it stays stationary. And then it turns its radar on and then makes it vulnerable for radar-seeking missiles that can be launched from aircraft at a great distance. They're basically a cruise missile. They go about 550 miles an hour. They got a very, very long range, so hundreds of miles. So the launching aircraft just stays out of range and sends these missiles to pick up the radar trail, go down the radar trail, hit the missile, kaboom. You have no radar. No radar, you don't have a missile system. That's that. Okay. And then they're free to try this multiple layers of bombs on the nuclear facilities. But honestly, I don't think they care that much about the nuclear facilities. What they're really worried about is the missile cities, of which there's supposed to be 12. And they're deep underground. They're in mountains too. They got rock, hundreds of feet of rock and hard stuff over their heads. So if they don't get the missile cities, they will launch at American bases. Note evacuation from the Syrian bases. America has troops in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, not Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. Iran could arrange to attack these bases and the oil refineries in these countries and the ports that they use to offload the oil onto ships. If you destroy those ports, see, they have big tanks by the port, really close, and the ships dock up the oil tanker and they put hoses, like a fire engine hose, a good size hose, or it could be a solid metal passageway, and they put it in the boat and they have a way of capturing it. And it's a mess. Okay. The missile cities are going to hit the oil refineries. So I do not think there's a way America can stop that. And I think Trump and the Pentagon have decided they could mitigate it. They could put a lot of missile defense systems up in Kuwait, and Bahrain and Qatar are rather important to America. Qatar has a big air base America uses, an American base, and Bahrain has a naval base. But the naval base, you just take the ships and move them down into the Indian Ocean out. Sorry, we're back. We're back. We had a little buffering. The port that Iran uses to deliver their oil, for 80% of it, is dead. It's got rigor mortis. It's finished. They got two other smaller ports that they use to do whatever they want. Can they convert that into oil? Yeah, somewhat. So what could they do? They could push out 20% of their oil. That's an economic suicide or a death to Iran. 60% of their containers came out of this port also. So that's finished. I imagine they'll hit the other two ports. That'll be 100% of the Iranian oil stop. That will mean China lost a major hunk of their oil. What are they going to do? Go to Russia? Well, that's not going to work. Why? Well, Trump just made a deal with Ukraine for the metals and minerals, 50-50 split. Now he gave Ukraine a $50 billion with a B dollar line of credit to buy weapons and repay the weapons with the future profits from the metals and minerals. This could be happening with Syria and the oil. Netanyahu, I'm taking my soldiers out of there. You put your soldiers in there. You run the freaking oil. I don't want the headache of that oil anymore. I don't need that oil. I don't want it. You take it. You make the money, and then you pay for the bombs that you get from us with that money. How's that sound? See how Trump thinks? Ukraine's a puppet and Israel's a puppet. Don't think Israel's not a puppet. It's part ally, heavily puppet. Okay? So, you see the pattern? It looks pretty real, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. And Netanyahu would love it because, oh, well, if he really wanted to help the Israeli people, which I think he detests the Israeli people, especially since so many of them want him to go to jail. I think he's really an enemy more than a friend, but he might actually get the oil into Israel. So instead of paying, $8 or $9 at the pump, we pay $4 or $5. People in Israel would be elated. They'd go, wow, look at this Netanyahu, he grabs land in Syria, this and that. His big nemesis politically is the hostages. Guys, I don't know anybody who came up with a good theory to get those hostages out. There is none. They're keeping them in tunnels. The terrorists are keeping them there with them. So you blow the tunnels up, you blow the hostages up. So I think Netanyahu and Trump realized that it's going to be between very difficult and impossible to get those hostages back. These lunatics don't scare. If we're still here in Gaza, we won. If we're dead, we went to paradise and got our 70 virgins, right? How do you deal with that? You can't. How do you don't know? I don't know how you deal with that. Netanyahu don't know how to deal with it. Trump doesn't know how to deal with it. The Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, all these kind of guys came over early on in the war and tried to figure out how to do it, and they couldn't do it. There's no answer to it. And at the time when the special forces were here, the hostages were spread into people's houses and apartments. Civilians were keeping the hostages, as sex slaves, as servants, and they beat them and hit them. And they're psycho. These people, these terrorist lunatics, belong in a hospital for the criminally insane. And that's it. You can't downplay it. That's how bad they are. Is Iran any different? Not at all. All that country thinks about is weapons and killing the infidels. Who's an infidel? Everybody that's not a Muslim of their persuasion. Just being a Muslim is not enough. You got to be their style Muslim. It's like the difference between a Pentecostal church and a Catholic church. They reject each other. That kind of thing. And that's all Iran is about, is weapons and killing everybody. And they will kill Europe. They'll kill North, South America. They'll go around killing Asia. They'll go around killing everybody. It's not going to happen, but left to their own devices, they would. So this whole thing in Syria is a mystery. I am rather sure that Netanyahu is not really staying up at night. His wife doesn't get up at 3:00 in the morning and see him in the kitchen sitting there staring and saying, Benji, what's the matter? I'm so upset over the poor Druze in Syria. I gotta help these people. I love these people. They're the salt of the earth. I don't know what to do. I can't, He doesn't care about them. He's using them. He cares a little. Seriously, he really cares a little. The Israelis have no really bad feelings towards them. They should. With the 10 Commandments, you shall have no other gods before thee. But they're blinded. They got their ears stopped. So, but Netanyahu doesn't have a soft heart for anybody. His heart is not made out of stone. It's made out of titanium. Okay? It's harder than stone. And he's proud of it. So he's got himself a wonderful alibi. The HTS government was nice enough to go out and start committing genocide against them. Whoever dreamed this up in the Israeli government, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Netanyahu. I could be wrong. Maybe he did come up with this idea. It was pretty smart. And all the pieces lead to an invasion and grabbing of land in Syria. And how much? I don't know. It might be all of Syria. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Trump's plan is destroy HTS and then we'll put something else in there. It might be just a good old division of Syria. And America winds up with the oil fields. Turkey winds up with a nice 25-mile buffer zone between Turkey and Syria to make him happy. And Israel has a big buffer zone. And then they let the Syrians just live there and no sanctions on Syria. And World Bank gives them economic aid. And then there's food for free coming in. And they just figure they'll make do somehow. I don't know what they'll do, but that could be it. Trump's finished with the negotiations with Russia. He's done. He's just going to be given longer range missiles to Ukraine. More oil refineries Russia had are going to get blown up, more bases, more military equipment depots, more railroads, everything. Everything. Keep Putin weak. And make money for the defense industry. And they'll help because they'll have their people work overtime. They'll hire new workers. It'll help. It looks like an attack on Iran is imminent. The negotiations are finished. The threats are very blood-curdling, and the attack on Iran has already started. The infrastructure is going. You see, where did Iran make a mistake? When you're a psychotic, criminally insane person that doesn't know the difference from right and wrong, you can do it in the name of religion. Serial killers in America do it all the time. What about what was the guy in London in the 1800s? Can't remember his name. What was his name? He would go around killing. I think he was a medical doctor or some. He would go out at night and find prostitutes and kill them to cleanse the land. We've had people do that in America many times. We've had serial killers in America for decades. They're Looney Tunes. And a lot of them think they're doing the right thing. I remember there was one in Berkeley in the 70s. They called him Stinky. He smelled the gasoline. And I was much younger. I had a girlfriend then who lived in Berkeley. I gave her a shotgun. She was getting nervous. And then a friend of hers loaned a dog to live there with her for a while. She seemed to match the profile. She had a son. She was divorced before I knew her. She had a son, a small kid. I don't know what he was, 8, 9 years old then or something like that. She met the profile. What Stinky would do, he smelled the gasoline like he worked in a gas station. Okay, Stinky would go. He was very careful surveillancing his targets, right? He would watch them coming and going. So he knew their routine. Okay. One of the first things you do if you're bodyguarding somebody as a pro is the person you're bodyguarding normally goes to the same places frequently. Like, what do I mean? Well, they go to their place of business or their multiple places of business, okay, repeatedly. So you have to take different routes, modify your routes constantly. very carefully. So if somebody's stalking your principal, they don't know the guy's going to go the same route. You just you don't tell anybody. You just, maybe you have 4 different routes. And if you're really good, you wake up in the morning or the night before, you would tell the bodyguards that are going to do the driving, we're going to take Route 3 today. Okay, Chief, you got it. Next day, we're going to take Route 4 or Route 1. And you rotate them. So what's the guy going to do? Set up on 4 different routes and wait for you? That's a little bit much usually. I mean, if you're Trump or something, it's not a little bit much, but So, he would, and people don't normally change their routine, so he would watch and he would focus on when they came home from work and when the child was out of daycare or wherever the child was in the house with him. Now, he didn't want a 16-year-old kid, that could pick up a table and hit him in the head with it or anything like that. He wanted small children, 4, 5, 6 years old, 8 maybe, And what he would do, this guy was really sick. He would break into the houses very nicely, usually with a window, and he didn't make damage, You could stick a basic pocket knife. A lot of these windows would have a rotating lock, and you could stick a knife in and slide it open. There's a lot of ways you could do it. He wouldn't bust the door in or anything because they were going to come home through the door. If you come home and you see your door broken, what's the best move? Step back, go to the street, get on the phone, call the police, tell them exactly what happened. They'll tell you did the right thing, and they'll send probably 4 cops over there, and they'll go in the house. They get paid to get killed. What do you want to get killed for? They could still be in the house. A lot of these people that do that are junkies, and they can fall on the knot in the house, and they'll be sleeping on a chair, and the cops will come in. People that rob houses are not the brightest light in the harbor. Now I'm not talking about robbing Sylvester Stallone's $80 million mansion where you can walk away with $20 million worth of junk. No. Rob working man houses. These are junkies. That's really what you're dealing with. Okay, it's almost always going to be a junkie. So he would break into the house, and then he would hide in a closet, typically, and he would wait till the woman was in the house 15, 20 minutes. She'd come in, what do? You put your purse down, you take your clothes off, you change, you go to the bathroom, whatever, and the kid would be there too. And then he would emerge from the closet with a weapon and scare the daylights out of her. Then he would tie her up, and he would tie the kid up. If the kid was really small, like 3 or 4, he'd put the kid in another room and, that kind of thing, lock her in another room or something. But he used the kid because he'd tell the woman, if you don't cooperate with me, I'm going to kill the kid. And that way he had cooperation in the rape. If he did women without the kid, some of them would resist, So he would stay there a long time and rape them and terrorize them. And he killed them frequently, but not all the time. He hurt them. I don't remember how many he killed. And you know what? They never caught him. He never got caught. Nope. Is it possible he was in some house and a woman came home and she carried a knife or a gun and she just popped around in his head or something like that and killed him? Unlikely, because he smelled from gasoline. It would have registered in that area that the guy smelled, gasoline, the body. They would have put the pieces together. And they had some descriptions of him. 1 or 2 people actually got a look at him. So they never caught him. See, they don't always catch him. It's kind of weird, isn't it? They don't always catch him. But these people are complete goners, okay? They're goners, all right? They're so far gone. That's what Hamas, Hezbollah, these terrorists, these militants, the Houthis, Iranians, that's what they are. They're complete insane people. Their fanatical belief systems and the demons have made them into complete lunatics. So that's why Iran is behaving irrationally. Do they know that the infrastructure of Iran is likely going to be destroyed? They got to know it. Are they trying to do a peace deal? No, they're too arrogant. They don't get it. They don't get it. They're going to be completely destroyed. In Jeremiah 49, it's referred to as Elam, E-L-A-M, so bad that people have to leave the country and go to they get scattered into every country of the world, and the sword follows them and they get cut off that way. Now, if you hit the missile cities and the nuclear facilities, that wouldn't happen. But if you take out the infrastructure big time, that would force the people to have to leave. What do I mean? Well, you got your power plants, right? What happens when the power plants are gone? Well, you have no refrigeration, no freezers, right? You can't store food, right? People can't work. They can't power the computers and the phones, right? Stores can't work. You can't authorize credit cards or authorize checks. You know, you got the beginning of chaos in the end, right? Then you take the airports out, because if you take just the military airports, they'll make the civilian airports into military airports. You take all that out. You take their warships out, their ports, their piers, bridges, tunnels, communication centers, factories that make weapons, storage of weapons and military equipment, military bases. And Iran will be in complete lunatic land. They'll be killing each other, running amok, and everything else. And that's what will happen, I think. So Trump painted himself in a corner. There's no negotiations with Iran. And if he doesn't go through with bomb Iran, well, he's going to look like a court jester. And he's not going to like that. So we're on the brink of war. China's collapsing. I'm starting to see a little bit price reductions. I looked at some items I'm familiar with at Temu, T-E-M-U. Temu is an AliExpress type operation, okay? And they're cheaper than AliExpress, and they got a lot of the same exact products. And AliExpress, if you buy from Israel, you're going to 95, not maybe just 90% of the time, they're going to send you the product via the post office. And it takes a long time. Okay. Temu uses couriers that bring it to your door. Okay. So their delivery system is much better. But Temu stopped selling to America because they can't. There was an $800 exemption from the sanctions, but Trump just recently removed it. So you could sell items from AliExpress or Temu if they were under $800, which is most of them. Probably 90% of them. I'll be right back. Quick break. So Temu and AliExpress and those characters lost a major market just a few days ago because that $800 exemption was eliminated very, very recently. They gotta, as I figure it, they gotta start cutting inventory and they gotta liquidate the manufacturers and stuff like that. Now they're gonna try to hang on for a little while, but they're not gonna make it. If Trump moves to secondary sanctions on people buying Iranian oil, life will get harder for some of these countries. Well, anyway, Temu is still operating in 49 countries, including Israel. So I'm just sitting there watching and waiting for the prices to drop down. And I'm looking at a 50% price drop in the near future. These people are going to be choking. They need cash. They can't just sit on inventory. China's falling apart. And when a country like China, which is a godless lunatic place, falls apart, they'll go to war. Why? Because if they don't go to the war and they just sit there and fall apart, it's the same effect to them as a war. They're goners. So what are the heads of China going to do? Move to Brazil like the Nazis did, or Argentina, or go live in Zurich or something like that? No, they're not going to do that. They want their fiefdom. The sheriff of Nottingham didn't leave Nottingham over Robin Hood. He stayed there. It's a joke, but they're not going. They're not smart enough to go. They're going to stay there. And have you seen negotiations with Trump and China working out? No, I haven't seen anything. Nothing. Nothing. So China's going to try to make it in the long run. No? What do I think their chances are? Pretty bad. What do I think America's chances are of surviving the next few weeks without getting attacked by a number of countries? Slim to none. Slim to none. There are too many countries talking about getting rid of America. They're not going to tell you they're talking about it, but what do you think they're doing? They're sitting there playing the game. What if there was no America? What a wonderful world it would be, right? They're not going to run around singing, give peace a chance. They're going to run around singing, give war a chance. Peace doesn't work. Let's try war. That's their mindset. That's the reality. Couldn't they cause Trump to get assassinated? I'm sure they're looking into it. I don't know. From prophecy, it's very likely Trump does get assassinated. I covered that several weeks ago, a month or 2 months ago. It's one of the leaders gets assassinated. It may or may not be Trump. I don't know. Look, Trump could slip on a banana peel and fall down the staircase and kill himself, right? Trump could have some chronic, he could get a stroke. He could get an aneurysm. He could get anything could happen to Trump. I mean, nothing, you don't know. You don't know. None of us know. Wait a second, let's see what this is. No. We don't know what will happen, okay? But Russia got a problem, Iran got a problem, North Korea got a problem, China got a problem. Venezuela got a problem, Cuba got a problem, Belarus, Russia's ally, got a problem with Trump. They all got a problem with Trump. That's a lot of wars to fight. in the middle of a sanctioned tariff war, in the middle of a border problem with Mexico, in the middle of a horrible trade dispute with Canada. Got a lot of problems, this guy. Trump got a lot of problems. He's in a game of chicken with China and Russia and Iran. Not so much North Korea. And that means they've taken their two hot rod cars and they're driving them together at each other head on to see who veers off first. And he's banking on Iran not. And look, Iran's going to go to war. Iran's not playing any games with Trump. Yesterday, they put a threat out to Rubio by name, the Iranian foreign minister, and the threat had something to do with retrieving your dead sailors' bodies out of the water. So that was a direct threat on their naval ships. Can Iran sink Navy ships of America? Yep. Would a lot of their ships get destroyed in the process? Yep. Would a lot of their sailors get killed in the process? Yep. Do you think the Iranians care about that? Nope. They'll just make them martyrs. They'll just make them martyrs. That's all they'll do. And that's it. So when is the bomb going to go off with all these wars? That I don't know. But India and Pakistan, they're still having border fights. They're escalating that stuff now. Pakistan is still saying, well, we'll go to war with you, we'll nuke you, we'll this you, we'll that you. And what have they done so far? Border fights, bullets and mortars. That's it. What has Iran done? Nothing. Border fights. They captured a Pakistani soldier or commander maybe or something like that. Big deal. But as long as India keeps those 4 dams closed, they are curtailing significantly, very significantly, the water flow to Pakistan. So they got to take a move, okay? They got to make a move. That's just a question of who blinks first. And China is with Pakistan, which means Russia and Iran and North Korea to some extent are also by proxy. And India's, I think, a little bit too cowardly to start the war. If they were going to start the war, they would have done it already. And Pakistan is cowardly too. And there's no peace negotiations. Somebody would have to come there and tell Modi, oh, you got to open up the dams. And I don't know who's going to do that. We don't know. It's weird. They're not settling it, you know. Let's check the live stream for questions. The economic situation in America, how serious is that? Well, it's medium serious. It's not dire. The ports are getting empty. So that means fewer and fewer foreign goods coming in. Does that mean the American public can buy similar products? Like you can't get a Chinese pliers or an electric drill, but you could get one made from another country. Yeah. Is the quality going to be the same? It could be better, it could be worse, it could be the same. Is the price going to be the same? Most likely higher. So you're going to have an inflation squeeze because the price of goods that you need to buy are going to be higher. And what that means when you read into it is people are going to delay buying these goods by months, unless they're desperate. I mean, if you're a workman and the screwdriver broke, you're going to go buy a non-Chinese screwdriver at a higher price. If you need it, you're going to buy it. But if you don't need it, you're going to delay it. So people are going to buy less of the clothing that you can get made in China rather inexpensively, because the other stuff that they're going to get is not made in China, it's made in other countries, and it's going to cost more. Okay? So they're going to delay purchases, furniture, clothing, tools, cameras, cell phones, tablets, computers coming from China that are affected by the tariffs. If the prices are going to go up, they're going to delay, or they'll go get something from another country. If the products from the other country realize they have a good marketing edge now, they're going to bang their prices up to enhance profits. So the cost of goods sold in America is going to be getting higher. And there'll be shortages. But I mean, how much food does America get from China? I don't know. What do you buy in the store that's really coming from China? I don't know what you could buy. I don't think that's a big deal with China and America with food. Maybe ramen noodles or something, but in general, I don't see it. America doesn't buy cars made in China. I don't think they buy motorcycles made in China. Maybe they do. I don't know. So I think you're looking at a lot of things, but it's by itself, what's happening with China, America can survive pretty easily. If Trump does, in fact, come up with a stimulus package, which I think he will, it will be a real shot in the arm to the economy. Let's say he's going to give the people anywhere from, $2,000 to $5,000. Well, it's going to really bolster the economy in a big way. The stuff not coming into the ports is going to mean the stevedores, the workers of the port, are going to get laid off. Now, so you got the port workers laid off, then the truck drivers are laid off. But then when the stimulus package comes, which I think he'll do, business will go back up and truck drivers will go back to work. And Trump can balance this. He's pretty bright. He'll figure it out. I think he'll get through it. But his mistake is he thinks that China is not going to go to war. They're going to settle. And I think that's his error. And his mistake is doing everything at the same time, cranking off Mexico and Canada, his two neighbors, cranking off China. Now he told Russia, oh, there's no more ceasefire, and now Zelensky in Ukraine got a $50 billion line of credit to buy weapons from us. You think Putin wants to talk to Trump anymore? He's irritated NATO, threatened them. He wants them putting 5% of their budget into NATO, and they're not doing it. And what's he going to do? And now you got Iran. So everything at the same time is his mistake. That was similar to Hitler's mistake. Hitler bit off more than he can chew at one time. He kept hitting all these countries and without rebuilding. And then he went and hit Russia, which was the end of him. He didn't even think it out. If he hit Russia in the springtime, let's say mid-spring or late spring, when the weather was very mild, it would have been better. But he hit too many places at the same time, Hitler, and he got himself stuck in Russia, and the Russians sucked him in. And that was the turn against Hitler, He fell apart. His allies were complete schmucks. Mussolini, he wound up hanging from a street lamp. He was an idiot supreme. I mean, even Hitler was so fed up with Mussolini. Mussolini was like a real dumbbell. And the Japanese made mistakes. They didn't understand America. Now, the bosses of Japan didn't. The military generals and admirals seem to have. One of them said, "Are you kidding? I'm not going to invade America. Everybody's got a gun over there." Okay. America was a different country then. What ruined America was the immigration that started around the late 60s, 67, I think, something like that. I grew up in the 50s, and, all that. I remember that. It was a completely different country, nothing like this. You didn't have the crime. Okay, the economy was very comfortable. Things were relatively cheap. Do you know in the 50s, houses were $2,500 to $5,000? Can't imagine that, can you? That's all they cost. If you were a clerk in a supermarket, you could afford to buy a house. People were selling used cars that you could buy and drive and run for years. They would sell them for $200-$300. These were perfectly usable, functional cars. Pontiac, Buick, Oldsmobile. Gasoline in the 50s was, I don't know, 15 cents a gallon, 12 cents a gallon. Nobody paid attention when they needed to fill up. They didn't need a lot of money. Meat was cheap, bread was cheap, vegetables were cheap. You'd be able to go to a luncheonette style restaurant in the mid-50s and have a cheeseburger and French fries and a Coke or a Pepsi or something like that with a tip for 75, 85 cents. McDonald's in the early 60s was 12 cents a hamburger, 10 cents for fries. Pizza was 15 cents a slice. So 8 slices to a pie would be 80 cents. $1.20 for quite a large pizza pie. See, America was a reasonable country, but this is the big thing. Let me explain where this China thing came to. You understand? In the 50s, non-Satan bots owned businesses, even in the 60s. They owned pharmacies. They owned photo shops. They owned clothing stores. They owned restaurants. Okay? They owned hardware stores, all this stuff, shoe repair. They had businesses, and they made a nice, comfortable living. Well, they had a car for the wife, a car for the husband. They had a, 1,800, 2,000 square foot house with a little garage and a backyard and a front yard and an upstairs. It was comfortable. They were very comfortable, right? And if you went to the Yankee Stadium and you sat in the bleachers to watch a ball game in the 50s, it was, I think, 75 cents. Today, I don't know, $15 or something, I mean, it's crazy. The movies were usually 25 cents or something like that. Maybe on the weekend or at night, it was 50 cents. It was pretty cheap. Popcorn, I think, was 15 cents a bucket, a small bucket. Hot dogs were 25 cents. Knish, I think, was 25 or 15 cents. It was real cheap. Okay, everybody lived nice. Nobody had MasterCard or Visa. Nobody knew what it was. Some people got a gasoline card. So you get a credit card from them, and whenever you went to get gas, you pulled it out of your wallet and you gave it to them. They went inside and run it up. You signed it. So you didn't have to worry if you had enough cash. They had no ATM machines back then. You used to get silver coins in your currency in your pockets and change. Mercury dimes, 90% silver. Silver dollars were circulating. 1 ounce of silver. It was worth $1. Today it's $30, $33. You go to the half dollars were silver or heavily silver as well. And quarters, standing Liberty quarter, the half dollar and the dollar and the dime. The nickel was made out of nickel, the penny was made out of copper. And they had paper money. And there used to be $1,000 bills in circulation up until the late 60s. People would have $1,000 bills. Not bank-to-bank transfers. They had bills for up to $100,000. But anything more than $1,000, they had a $500 bill and they had a $1,000 bill. Then they had a $5,000, a $10,000, $50,000, and $100,000. Anything over the $1,000 was used for bank transfers, where a bank would give money to another bank and they could take $100,000 bills and put them in a little carrier pouch and have $1 million or millions of dollars, But that wasn't for circulation. It would be too easy to counterfeit, But who would take it? Where are you going to go? Are you going to go to a car dealership and say, I want to buy a Pontiac, back then was maybe $1,800, and give them a $100,000 bill? You'd have to send somebody to the bank to cash the bill, and I don't know how you're going to do that. But you could give them two $1,000 bills, and he give you the car, Clothes were better. The shoes were made out of leather and rubber heels, leather lined, real leather. They even had leather shoelaces. The coats were usually wool or leather, real leather or real wool. Cotton clothes. People didn't have burglar alarms. People weren't worried about carrying guns. Robbers really didn't have guns. I mean, yeah, a bank robber or a store robber might. They really didn't have that. People were infatuated with watching television, and the government was brainwashing them. That's how they brainwashed the people, really, was the TV. The radio didn't really do it. The radio was too abstract. Go to YouTube and look at old-time radio shows. You can hear them. Old-time detectives were very popular. Old-time comedians were popular. George Burns and Gracie Allen were funny. Jack Benny was funny. It was a lot of them, You could go listen to them, and that's what people did. They sat around and they listened to the radio, and they read the paper while they listened to the radio, and the paper would brainwash them as well. So the little store owners, the Satan bots in America decided, we don't want these people making a good living having their own stores. They're not Satan bots. They're garbage. We're the supreme beings. We're Satan's chosen. So they decided to figure out a way to get rid of the small merchants. And along came the department store. Okay? Now, the department store never really wiped out the little merchants. It hurt them because they had greater purchasing power, so they could pass goods on cheaper. But they were never that big, and they never were anything like Walmart. They weren't really importing from China. So along comes Walmart, and Walmart starts importing stuff from China dirt cheap, and they start selling everything. So over time, who did Walmart and their copycats, put out of business? Well, they did the pharmacy, they did the optometrist guy, the eyeglass guy, they did the photo development, they did the shoes, jewelry. They got the jewelry guy for cheap jewelry. They got the record store by selling records and CDs and tapes and all of that, depending on what year you're looking at. Clothing, furniture. They got the furniture guys, the clothing guys. They even sell food in there. So they got the little grocery stores. So over a brief period of time, they drove the ma and pa retailers that were the backbone of America, that cared about their customers. They knew their customers, and they sold quality goods. So when you bought a monkey wrench or an electric drill, it lasted you 20, 30, 40, 50 years, sometimes generational. You passed it on. This stuff lasted and lasted and lasted. China was cheap garbage that would wear out quickly. And they shifted all the people over to buying cheap foreign-made junk. Okay? That's what they did. And they put the little guy out of business. When I grew up, I used to go bring stuff home for my parents. So I would go. We had a store. It was a dairy store, they called it, right? It was cheese. I think they sold eggs. And it was a kosher store, so it was based on dairy, the way the rabbis teach it, not the Bible, the rabbis. So they would have cheese and milk and cream and goat's milk, I think. And, cheese. We used to go there and buy cheese. So I'd go over there and buy cheese. And they knew me and they talked to me. It was a man and his wife. They were big, tall people. Nice people. Then there was a guy that had a fruit stand. And he had a lot of different fruit. And he'd stand there all day. And, he wasn't that friendly, but he had nice fruit. And some of the small supermarkets, and they were small, had fruit out on the sidewalk, and they sold chicken, and they sold turkey, and they sold beef, and some of them had a fish tank, and they had live fish in there. And you go to your hardware store, and you would buy whatever you needed, and then you had your stationery store that sold school supplies, pens, paper clips, erasers, notebooks, pads, book covers, all this stuff, right? Hobby stores that sold model airplanes, model ships, toy stores that sold toys. See, Walmart crushed all these people. All these people for many decades, luggage stores, they sold luggage. Then they sold, the luggage stores sometimes sold purses and handbags. They got crushed. They got crushed. Then you had sporting goods stores, baseball gloves, football, basketballs, baseball bats. They got crushed. They got crushed. Who didn't they crush? The beauty parlors and the barbershops. They kind of made it. but they became chains like franchises, but they still made it. They're still around. They couldn't get rid of them. Gyms, gymnasiums, independents, they're still around. There's almost nothing left that the big conglomerate corporations haven't stolen. So that's why you see people like Jeff Bezos, who's probably approaching being a trillionaire from Amazon. Amazon, what doesn't Amazon sell? Well, they don't sell guns. They don't sell, what else? Narcotics. I don't know. What else don't they sell? Basically guns. They don't sell cars. They don't sell motorcycles. They don't sell airplanes. They don't sell boats. They don't sell houses. Other than that, they sell practically anything, don't they? We used to have camera shops that just sold cameras. And we had clothing stores that just sold men's clothing. Then they had some that sold just women's clothing. And I used to go to a guy's, it was called Paul's. It was a Jewish neighborhood. Everybody was Jewish. So this Paul used to sit in a little shop that was dimly lit, and he would sit there all day. He was probably 60, 80 pounds overweight. Friendly guy, though. And he sold Lee jeans, Levi jeans, Converse sneakers, Keds sneakers, and sweatshirts. And I think he had watch caps, maybe, beanies. And that's about all he sold. So my mother used to send me over there and she'd give me the money. I don't know what a pair of jeans were, $3 maybe. And I would go in and say, yeah, I need to get a pair of jeans. And he'd say, okay, what do you want? And I would usually get Levi, sometimes Lee, mostly Levi. What's your size? I'd give him the size because my mother told me what my size was. I was young, I wouldn't know. And then he give it to me, and I say, my mother told me I had to try him on first. He says, that's okay. Go back there and stand behind there. It was a big wall of boxes or something he had. Go stand there, you can change there. So he didn't have a changing room. I went back there, took my pants off, put his on. It fit. If it didn't fit, I would tell him, but I think it always fit. Take the pants off, put the old pants on, go back, pay him. And he was a good guy. And the sweatshirts were all Hanes, and they were warm. They didn't have the synthetics in there. They had them without the zipper, with the zipper, and they had a partial zipper. They had that. Things were simple. We didn't have 1,100 kinds of running shoes. You had Converse low top, you had Converse high top, you had Keds low top, high top, and what they called tennis shoes, which was the 5-hole laces. And they actually did have a remote kind of tennis shoe, and Keds did make a KEDS. They did make a handball shoe that was weird. And that was it for shoes. So you bought your Converse or your Keds, and you ran in them, you played basketball in them, softball, football, handball, rode your bike in them, whatever you were going to do, you did with those. That was it. We didn't have specialized. You didn't have cross-country shoes, basketball shoes, tennis shoes, golf. You didn't have that. And golf shoes they had with the spikes back then. They had that. I never played golf, but you had everything was simple. As a kid, that's what we had. And the Levi's were not like they are today. They were thick and heavy, and they weren't comfortable to wear. They would be like cardboard. You really had to get your mother to wash them 2 to 3 times before they were comfortable. 3 times, really. Then they were comfortable. It took a lot, but they wore like iron. They're not like they are today. Today they're more comfortable because they're thinner, but they don't wear the way they used to, you know. Wrangler jeans, I never knew from in New York. I know they had Lee and they had Levi. I don't remember Wrangler. Maybe it was there and I just don't remember it. And we used to buy footballs. They made footballs made out of real leather. It was cheap. And if you were going to play football on concrete, they had rubber footballs. And real basketballs, like the pros use, are made out of leather. And you only use those on wood. You don't use those on concrete. So we would all buy rubber basketballs because we would play on concrete. Softballs. You get the real softballs that were made in with leather, and then they'd get ruined in the concrete before long. So they had ones that looked just like it with a heavy rubber. And we'd buy those. And with baseballs, you had the same concept, but usually we would buy real leather baseballs. They were cheap. And they sold these Spalding pink balls that were, depending what year, 10 cents, 25 cents. I remember comic books with 10 cents. That's as far back as I can remember. They were probably 3 cents if you went back far enough, but I remember 10 cents. And that's probably the post-World War II price for the comic books. And we used to collect them. And I had some pretty good rare ones, and I went away for college, and my mother wanted to make room in the closet, and she gave my comic books away or threw them away. That was a hard blow. Kids collected stamps. They collected coins. We played board games. We played with friends in the real world. There was no virtual world. In the winter in New York is pretty boring because you can't go outside very easily. It's miserable. And New York weather is miserable from Thanksgiving to late March. Pretty bad. The springtime is wonderful. The fall is not bad, really. The spring and summer were great. And we'd be outside as much as we could be outside, And they had a park. I was walking distance to the Bronx Zoo, so we'd go to the Bronx Zoo if we got bored. There was botanical gardens right near the Bronx Zoo, but we wouldn't go there because what the heck we were going to do there? We had no interest in it, And we used to run around as kids ourselves. I used to ride the buses, the subways, like 12 years old, all over New York City. And did anything ever happen? No. We didn't have all this crime. Nobody was using drugs except a few people in the ghetto. Nobody was packing guns. The cops had guns, maybe a few store owners would keep a gun or something like that. But nobody was worried about this. Women weren't getting raped. I used to ride the subways late at night, and I'd doze off on the subway, not that late at night, and maybe 8 o'clock at night, coming back from Manhattan to the Bronx from karate school. I'd doze off. Nothing happened. We used to ride the subway when I was a teenager. We'd be riding it at 1 o'clock in the morning, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. It wasn't unsafe. People leave their windows open when they weren't home, and when it all changed was when they opened up immigration. I think it was 1967. That's when America went whoop, and that coincided right with the Vietnam War. That Vietnam War was for nothing. I mean, what, the Vietnamese people were going to get in their rowboats and come to America and attack you? We got to stop the spread of communism. What a crazy excuse to go annihilate the people. They were doing genocide. I mean, it was a nightmare over there. I didn't go there. I was never there. But I mean, I knew people. I knew tons of people that were there. It was horrible. It really was. And a lot of the people that were there that came back were never right. As soon as they got back, they were never right. Some were. Some were. I knew a bunch that did get back, and they were just fine. But I knew a bunch that got back and were not fine and never came out of it. Bad chemicals for Agent Orange, and they were using other things that were bad. and a lot of them were taking drugs in Vietnam because they didn't. It was just ridiculous, you know. They gave that war up, and then they gave up the draft because the country was coming apart. They almost lost control of America in the latter 60s. You had the hippies, you had the black movement, you know, the Black Panthers, and um, they were pretty active and pretty violent, and the hippies were dragging the country down, and it was ridiculous. You know, it was just the hippie thing really destroyed America to a reasonable extent. It introduced drugs in a widespread fashion which never went away. And it ruined morality, which never went away, just got worse. Hippies were completely immoral, you know. Nude beaches popped up with the hippies. They were completely immoral. They tried doing communes and they would always fail. It just took a matter of time till they failed. They couldn't make it in communes. It was just a question of when they went down, you know. Cults, Reverend Moon, and all of them were popping up. And kids were going there. Hare Krishnas. That's when the country, right with the Vietnam War, the country fell apart. So I'm going to talk about spiritual warfare. So I told you about the dog the other day that I tried to throw the demons out of when I didn't know any better in Israel many years ago. And it was a little poodle kind of dog this woman that was a witch had, and she'd walk it, and she got a demon in her dog, which she probably asked for as a favor. And whenever I came near the dog had a demon, and the demon would recognize the Holy Spirit and bark at me, and I'd have to cross the street. So when I started doing demon tossing, I don't know, 30, 35 years ago, I did it before, but I really got into it as a lifestyle back then. I walked up by the dog and I said, I bind you in the name of Jesus Christ, or I may have said Yeshua HaMashiach, I can't remember. And the dog stopped barking, cocked his head, looked at me a few seconds, and then started barking again. And I walked across the street and I said, okay, Lord, what did I do wrong? And the Lord said to me, how long did you bind it for? And I said, oh. Then I realized they never, because, you know, I bound it for how long? So the demon stopped the dog barking for 2, 3, 4 seconds and said, okay, I was bound. Now I'm not bound. I'll bark again. You know, so they never did that in the Bible. I learned by digging into it. They always just tossed the demon out. Right? Okay. So then I started throwing the demon out of people and dogs. Very rarely would I do it in a dog, but okay. So, this woman had a grandson that used to be with her all the time. So one day this was in Tiberias, so I was doing exercise walking. At that point in my life, I was much younger, and I would go up and down the hills at a brisk pace for my exercise. And I didn't think it was too healthy to run in that heat on the concrete and hurt my knees or whatever. So I walked. And I'm walking back one day, and I happened to see this kid about 50, 75 feet in front of me on the sidewalk. Now, this kid didn't speak a stitch of English, okay? And this kid had no idea I was behind him, right? So I'm walking and I quietly say, in the name of, I might have said Jesus Christ, or I said Yeshua HaMashiach, I don't remember. I command you, unclean spirits, to come out from this boy walking ahead of me. And I might have defined it more, I can't remember. And before I finished, the kid turned around and looked at me with a face of horror, and then ran across the street to a little mini market that had tables and chairs out in the front of it so people could eat stuff out there. And he ran in there and sat down and like he was relieved. So what this kid told me was the guy that owns the store has a demon. He's a Satan bot, right? So of course I tossed him later on, right? So the Lord was training me and teaching me this stuff, right? So I understood. He went to the other guy. Why did he go to that store? Well, the guy's a Satan bot. He figured he'd be safe there. He's not. But okay. So what did I learn from this? I finished the tossing in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach or Jesus Christ, but I can't recall what I said. Probably Yeshua HaMashiach, but I don't want to say for sure. It's been almost 40 years. I can't remember. But the demon came out. The kid was terrified. And before I finished it, the demon knew I was doing it. Okay? The kid could not have heard me. If the kid heard me, he didn't have a stitch of English. And I was doing it in English. So what did I learn? I learned a lot. Number one, you're not talking to the person. When Paul threw the demon out of the woman's soothsayer, remember she was following him around and saying, these men are speaking the truth. What she was doing was trying to act like she was with them. So people that were with Paul, in other words, believers, would be new believers, and they make believe that she was a nice, righteous saint, and she'd get contact with them and then tell them she could predict the future, or you could communicate with your dead relatives or some garbage like this, right? And earn money and drag people into sin. That was the work of the demon in her, right? So what does it say in the word? It says, Paul turned to her and he spoke to the demon, not the woman. He addressed the demon. He commanded the demon to come out of her in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. He said it to the demon. You're not talking to the person, you're talking to the demon in the person. Do the demons understand all languages? I believe they do. Is it the beautiful, magical notes of your voice that make the demon come out? No, it's the power of Father God, Jehovah, that makes them come out. It's not your voice, it's Father God, Jehovah. These signs shall follow them that believe in my name, they shall cast out devils. God set the world up that when you do it, when you cast the demon out of somebody or an animal or whatever, they only go in living things. They don't go in books or shoes or chairs. Or, your car doesn't have a demon. A demon could go in your car, but the car, it doesn't possess a car like it does a person. It goes in the person. It doesn't go in the engine block or anything like that. Living things it goes in. Okay? So could it go in a deer or a bear or a horse? Yeah, it could. I think that's how these idiots with the lion and tiger shows do it. They throw demons in the lions and tigers, and that's how they get the compliance. That's what I think. Okay, let's move on. So he couldn't hear me, yet it worked. So what did I learn? Space and distance and language doesn't matter. More. So right around this time, I lived in a ground floor apartment, had bars on the windows. It was hot in the summer. And I just, for some reason, happened to go to the open window and I was looking outside. It was cooler outside than inside. Just standing there. And I saw a van drive by, and it was one of the biggest false believers in Israel, goes around the world speaking. I'm not going to use names back at the time. And as the van's driving by, I got a great idea. And I said, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, or in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you unclean spirits to come out of people in the van. Again, I think before I finished, or right at the time I finished, the guy slams the brakes onto the van and screeches. I said to myself, aha, you're really getting into it now. I really enjoyed that. Okay, then he just drove away. It says in Luke 10, and nothing shall by any means harm you. They can't come, the demons can't come back at you. Who do you know got hit with a sword by a demon? I mean, could demons pick objects up? Well, if they could, they'd pick a heavy rock up and drop it on your head, wouldn't they? Or pick a knife up and throw it at you or stab you with it or something like that. Come on. Come on. Can they do that? I don't think so. Okay. Now, did the people in the van hear me? No, impossible. I didn't scream it out the window. I was whispering it. Do I do it out loud? Yeah, I don't think it. I do it out loud, but you can whisper it out loud. That's out loud. Out loud is out loud. Okay. So I was saying, well, this is pretty cool, you know? So then I had another instance where this woman in the next building who was a witch. By now, the witches in Israel were hunting me. You know, they were trying to curse me. You know, that's another story. So she lives, I don't know, 30, 40 feet, her building's away from mine, and she was up 2 or 3 floors. And I see her looking out of the window at me, and they take postures like this, and it means something. Like, if they go like this, it means don't bother me now. They got different ways of doing it. I can't remember everything. It's idiot stuff, you know. So she's up there making one of these postures at me, right? So she, she didn't speak a stitch of English. And I just said, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, or Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you, unclean spirits, to come out of this woman. Never heard me. What happens next? She goes away from the window and shuts the shutters. I go to myself. I'm getting very pleased with myself and the teachings of the Lord, right? And what goes on? I used to see this woman every day with a baby carriage. I didn't see her come out of the house for many days. And I'm tossing, one day I'm tossing the guy going into synagogue. I'm looking out my back, scenic, huge picture window, and there was a synagogue from an old bomb shelter. And the guy's going in there, and I said, well, let me toss him. So I tossed him, and then the guy turns around and looks at me and gives me his evil eye crap, right? I'm laughing at him, yeah, evil eye, yeah, lots of luck with that one, A causeless curse shall not land. That's Proverbs 26. If you're giving place to the devil, that's one thing. If you're not giving place to the devil and you're doing what Yeshua said, in my name you shall cast out devils, that's not giving place to the devil. That's giving place to Yeshua, letting him in your life, doing what he says you're going to do as a believer. The guy had no cause to make the curse work. Now, if I went out and did adultery with his wife and he did it, then he might have got somewhere. But I would never do that. They don't know. They don't know stuff. You think Satan teaches them the spiritual warfare tactics of the believers? I don't. When you attack one of the believers with spiritual warfare incessantly over and over, then they might come and shore that person up and teach them something, but they're always going to lie. That's how they are. They lie. Then one day I'm going out on the street and 2 Orthodox kids with the black coat and the black hat and all that stuff, kids, small kids, they're sitting there looking at me and they start giving me this the horns. It's a curse. Start cursing me. I didn't know these kids from a hole in the wall. The demons were in them, and demons told them when they went and cursed me. What I started to learn was these people in Israel thought that I was just another type of a witch. I'm serious. They didn't understand Yeshua or demon. They thought I was a powerful witch, and they were trying to curse me back. I mean it. So I had a neighbor that was a witch. There was a couple. They were both witches, and I went after them just because I was having fun doing it, really. And one day, the building had a little supermarket in the basement. Like a little corner grocery store, a small one. And it was very convenient. You just walked down a couple of flights of steps and you bought what you needed. It was really convenient. He had some frozen meat. He had cereal, fresh breads every day, cheeses, ice cream, soda. I don't know if he sold liquor or not. I never used liquor. I don't know what he had with liquor. Probably had liquor. Candy, a pretty broad run of stuff, a little bit of cleaning supplies. Okay. So I went down to get something. I don't know what in the world I needed to buy, but I went down to get something. I saw the woman. I was doing spiritual warfare there, right? So she didn't know I was in the store. I was behind her. So I sit there and very quietly I say, I command you unclean spirits to come out of, B'Shem Yeshua, Mashiach, come out of this one. And then I see her go, right after I do it, she throws her hands up in the air and goes something like that. Makes some kind of gesture like, oh, no, not again, right? She didn't know I was sitting there watching her until she turned around and saw me there watching her. It was classic. And I kept doing this. I kept running around doing spiritual warfare, trying to, sharpen my knife and hone my skills. Okay. So they were trying to get back at me, the witches, right? Now, I told you my former wife was a witch, and I found out about her false believers. So they were trying to help her. Okay. So one day, now at that point, I was getting ready to leave Israel, I think, and I stopped working and I was collecting unemployment insurance, and the Lord brought me out of the churches altogether and was teaching me spiritual warfare. And what my days consisted of was praying in tongues, reading the scriptures, and doing spiritual warfare. That was my days. Okay? So I was begging the Lord to send me an angel or somebody who knew spiritual warfare to teach me. When I tell you I was begging him, I'm not kidding. When I say I was begging. And all he did, now I don't know if there was anybody he could have sent me other than Apostle John. And at that point in time, I didn't know anything about Apostle John or the two witnesses or anything. I was not up on that. So he just kept me in the Word. And it's all there. You just got to really dig for it. And I mean, you got to dig and dig and dig, but it's there. And you ask for help, and help you'll get. Not necessarily in the way you expect it or want it, but help it'll be. My ways are not your ways, the Lord says, but his ways work better than your ways. Although you don't think your ways are inferior to his, they are. Believe me, they are. But it's hard to understand his ways. I understand. I know that. So they sent. Now, this is the way it started. I'm in the house, and there's a fly in the house, and the thing is driving me crazy, right? So we used to buy bug spray in Israel. It was a can, it had a nozzle and a thing you push, and right? So I go to get the bug spray to get rid of this thing because it's tormenting me. And so I go to get the bug spray and the thing flies away out of range. Repeatedly, after a few times, I start thinking, wait a minute, what stinking insect knows that this is a can of bug spray and it's got to fly away when it sees the bug spray? It didn't make sense, right? So then what? I threw the demon out of the bug and it just flew away. I sprayed it actually at the end. It stopped running away and I did give it a squirt. It had a demon. They were spying on me or bothering me or whatever they were doing. It's way more common for them to get a demon in a cat or a dog or something like that. That's not that rare. Okay. If you ever get bothered by a dog or a cat, demon toss it. And then if you see the cat or the dog act normal and could care less if you were there or not, well, victory in Yeshua. So then I started learning that if you could toss a demon out of someone that doesn't speak your language, that's 50 or 75 feet away, and you're whispering and there's no way they heard you, you could do it at 3, 4, 5,000 miles too. Yeah, you can. Because you're not working in the physical. The human that you're tossing does not have to hear it nor understand the language. If I was in America or England and I wanted to toss a demon out of somebody and I was near them and I didn't know I didn't want them to know what I was doing, I could do it in Hebrew. Bashem Yeshua HaMashiach Lo Tov Ruakim Boy Mazei Gaveret, for a woman. Or Zay Adam, for a man. Akshav, Bashem Yeshua HaMashiach. No good spirits come out of this woman or this man now in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. So what person in America or England is going to really understand me? If I was in a Jewish neighborhood, maybe. But, they wouldn't know. You could do it in Israel in Spanish or French. I never really worked it out, Spanish or French. Could do it. It would be easy, but why bother? So it's a spiritual world you're working in. And it's not limited by mileage and language barrier and hearing ability. You're doing it by your voice in faith, and God makes it happen. And that's why it works at distance. Okay? That's why it works at distance. And in the early days, when the disciples and Yeshua were tossing demons out, which never happened before Yeshua came to earth, this wasn't going on like this, I mean, remember, King Saul and David, and, people weren't doing that. Hang on a second. Oh, I have to run out for a delivery. Hello? Hi, you here? I come right out. Bye. He's such a nice guy. Well, I'll be back in a moment. I just got to run out and grab something. okay, they're 20, 25 kilo. And then send me, I need to give you more for an order. Send me another 10 kilo bag of the natural. You have wild flavor? Okay, that's enough for an order, right? Did it come today? Today? Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. Sorry, this is like a fireside chat on demon tossing, and there's going to be more of them. Okay. So, let's say the stupid witches try to curse you, put a spell or enchantment on you or something like that. Well, if you're not giving place to the devil, it ain't going to work. But let's say there's somebody in your life who's not a believer or doesn't walk right with the Lord, and they use them to mess with you, like your boss or a neighbor or a spouse or a child. What can you do? They don't have a demon in them. They're doing witchcraft on them to make them make your life miserable. So what do? It's not hard. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, I cancel, make null and void for all time, any witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments designed to target any person to make problems for me. All such things are cast null and void for all time. They shall never return. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I command every unclean spirit that was involved in this work, using people to target me, to come out of any person you're in immediately and never return back to that person again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. You like that? Okay. Let's take some common examples. You got some schmuck neighbor that hates God and hates you because you serve God, and they create loud music and stuff. They play some sicko music that's obnoxious, and it's really annoying you. It's very loud. How do you deal with it? You can call the police and they might do something. Or you can fight them in the spirit, and when you fight them in the spirit, you win. When you fight them in the flesh, maybe not, but when you fight them in the spirit, you win. Fight in the spirit. You're going to win. Okay? I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from every person in this house where the loud music is coming from. Never go back into these people again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. That might work. First, second, third time. It's going to stop working. That's the pet store, I think. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Yeah, the 15 will work. Okay, that'll work. Okay, thank you. Bye. Okay, that was dog food for the girls. All right, so now the guy gets used to demon tossing. The demons have told him, hey, let's do it this, make them. See, what the demons try to do is make you think it's not working. Okay, so when you start tossing them, they're going to make believe nothing happened, keep a straight face, stuff like that. Just be prepared for that. They're not going to throw themselves against the wall or in the water or jump off a cliff or anything like that, because that's going to encourage your faith. The idea is to break your faith. Okay? That's the purpose of the church. Teach you stuff, get you to believe it, and it never comes to pass, and then you give up on the faith. What do you think the church's purpose is? To lead you into the kingdom of God? Come on. All right. So, did they ever teach the way I teach on spiritual warfare? By the way, you have my open invitation and permission to throw all the demons out of me anytime you want. Demon toss me anytime you want. I don't have any demons. You ever hear any teacher in a church, in a denomination, on the internet ever say what I just said? You never will. I don't think you ever will. I wish there was thousands doing it, but I don't think you ever will. One of us is actually coming to Israel very shortly, legally and lawfully and legitimately with a plan. I wonder if more are going to come now. Be here for redemption, the appearing. I don't know. I welcome it. So now they're playing the music loud again some days later, and then you're tossing them, and it's not working because there's no demon in them. Now the demons are communicating with them. How can you play that game? It's not hard. You can tread over all the power of the unclean spirits in Luke 10. So what do? I command all you unclean spirit, every unclean spirit, to not go into this house and identify the house, nor communicate with anybody in this house from outside the house for, give it a period of time, I don't know, 3 months, a year. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. So now they can't go in the house and they can't communicate with anybody in the house. Then you could add to it and say, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, you shall not communicate with anybody that lives in this house for the next year continuously. If they're in the house, not in the house, all you unclean spirits are so bound for the next 12 months from doing so. This is an irrevocable command, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. That's one way. Because now they're not going to start playing the music because they're not getting guided by the unclean spirits. Now what they're going to do is they're going to go to their friend. I'm going to give you this stuff on a deep level. They're going to go to their friends in witchcraft hood and ask them what to do, and the friends have demons. So what do? B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you unclean spirits to immediately depart from any person that attempts to give these people living in the house any counsel, guidance, comfort, leading, direction, teaching, or advice. As soon as they attempt to do that, any unclean spirit in this person shall immediately depart from them, never to return to them again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Yeah. Want another way? Okay, let's blast the music again. I command you unclean spirits for a distance of 1 mile from this house making the noise with the music to have no peace, joy, calm, or rest for as long as this music is playing loud. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now that takes usually an hour, a half hour, something like that. Because the demons don't know what's going on. They got to try to figure out what's on and what's going on. Then they got to figure out how to get the music to stop. I didn't toss them out of the people. I didn't tell them they can't leave the people. They could leave the people, but then they got to go to the place, the dry place, and be miserable there for a spell. So, have I done that and does it work? Yeah, it works good. If it doesn't work good, then go from 1 mile to 2 miles, then go to 3 miles, and you're going to get your result. What if you want to just play games? You're bored. I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from every person that owns, operates, controls drives or has a Lamborghini, a Bugatti, a Rolls Royce, or a Bentley, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. I just did that for real. I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from every person who owns or possesses a Patek Philippe watch, a Rolex watch, an Audemars Piguet watch. Depart from all these people now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from every person who's currently on the floor of the XYZ stock exchange. Depart from all these people immediately, and I command you, unclean spirits, to not go into the stock exchange building for the next year, nor communicate with anybody in this stock exchange building while they're in the building or not in the building for the next year, B'Shem Yeshua Mashiach. So how are they going to help the stock market run crooked? Then you got gambling casinos. Same thing. I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from everybody that owns, operates, controls a Learjet, a Bombardier jet, blah, 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 right? The private jets. Then you got movie producers, movie stars, singers. You got the idea yet? TV announcers, news producers, TV shows. They put witchcraft and sorcery in movies. What do you think horror movies are scary for? You know? I cancel, make null and void any witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments associated with this motion picture, blah, 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 B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. It is null and void for all time. It shall never return, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And watch the thing flop. Political bodies are meeting. Toss them. Leaders of countries. You don't like them? They did something to offend you? Toss them. Tell the unclean spirits they can't operate in the palace that the political leader runs the country from for the next year or two or something. They can't go in there, in people, not in people. Tell the unclean spirits in Yeshua's name that they can't enter your house in a person, not in a person, not in any living thing. And if you give permission for a person to enter into the house, it doesn't mean that they can come in. They have to leave the person if they go in the house and put a time frame on it and do it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. You might want to play all this stuff back, but it's my pleasure to create a large troop of spiritual warriors. The more spiritual warriors we had, the better our lives would be. But it's hard as heck to get people into this, you know. Sometimes they work with cursing people. They see somebody get sick, not due to a spell or an enchantment or anything. They just got sick, right? And then they try to build on that. And a lot of people in the medical community, mostly nurses and those kind of people, will work in medical facilities and try to encourage the people to get worse by comforting them, making them comfortable at the bed in the hospital. You know, and they try to encourage them and curse them if they can and get them to get sick enough to die. These are some really twisted, sick people, guys. Just like Satan is. So, I could do questions on this. Hey, we got some prayers requests and stuff. Hang on. Let's get into that. That's really important. And you guys should take advantage of the prayer requests. Don't be prideful and say, "Oh, I don't want to ask for prayer." Isn't that stupid? Where in the Bible does the Bible tell you, or the Lord tell you, not to ask for prayer? Okay, this prayer is for DB, Delta Bravo, DB, Delta Bravo, DB. Prayer request is for DB to walk with the Lord. The prayer request is for DB, Delta Bravo, to walk with the Lord. Next one is for NB, Normandy Bravo, NB, Normandy Bravo, NB. This prayer request is to meet this person's father. This person, NB, Normandy Bravo, wants to meet their father. I would probably do better to say birth father. Okay, for NB. Okay. Earthquakes are up, kids. You gotta remember that's a birth pain. Indonesia 6.2, and then it had a 5.0, probably an aftershock. 106 wildfires in Florida as the drought worsens. So far, 3,366 acres burned, but that's probably 12-hour-old info, or maybe even 18 hours or 24, maybe. Volcanoes are up too. That's columns of smoke in Mark 13. That's up too. You should have fun with spiritual warfare and enjoy yourself. Okay? You really should. Look up all the churches in your area, whatever you call your area, and then on Sunday about 11 o'clock, 11:30, start tossing the churches from your living room. Make a nice cup of coffee, lemonade, maybe a glass of milk with some cookies, whatever you like. Sit there on the sofa or your easy chair, put your feet up, and have a good time. So you might want to play this stuff back on the spiritual warfare and listen to it or make notes or something like that. My email address is at the last line down in the description box. It's the top of the chat. IsraelGiving with the number 7 at gmail.com. Don't be afraid of them. They can't hurt you. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to throw a lightning bolt at you. They can't. They're not going to throw rocks at you or shoot you. They can't do anything. They're stinking demons, okay? They're beaten. They're nothing. They're liars and deceivers. That's how they suck people in, and the people do the work for them. Satan's using his chosen people, you know those are, in the surrounding countries to attack Israel. He can't attack Israel. What's he going to do, sit there and fling lightning bolts at us? Yeah, right. That's a Hollywood movie, not reality. He's cast out. He's done. There's no power. He's a liar and a deceiver. That's all he is. You're not going to suffer anything, you know. And you'll have a good time. You'll enjoy it, and it will build your faith. Oh, will it build your faith? And I want to tell you something else. This is very habit forming. Once you start tossing, you're never going to stop because it's so rewarding. It's so nice. like Jackie Gleason said, how sweet it is. It's really nice. You can actually get out there and fight in the spiritual realm and win. And that will bring your faith up immensely. Try it. You'll like it. The price is right. It's free. You don't have to buy a license from anybody to go do this. You just got to be in the Lord. Is it going to work if you're not in the Lord? No, it won't work. These signs shall follow them that believe. In my name they shall cast out devils. Mark 16, I think it's verse 17 or 16. If you're not a believer, you can say the words all you want. Nothing's going to happen. God's power makes it happen. Not the words. Okay? When I bang on the chair, the noise comes from my slapping the hand down. The demon doesn't come out because of the voice or I said magic words. It's not magic words. It's the power of God. God knows I said the words and then he makes it happen. That's what happens. It's a spiritual law, he said, in a place. When you're believing you do it, it will happen. Okay, once I saw Satan it was a dream or a vision. It was a rather warm afternoon in Tiberias many years ago, and I saw what I'm quite sure is Satan flying at me from the Galilee, coming into my open bay windows, huge windows overlooking the Sea of Galilee. And he flew into the room, and I pointed my finger at him. And I remember this well. I was not saying Yeshua, I was saying Jesus. But in my heart and my mind, I was focused on the true Messiah, not the schmuck they preach in the churches, the real Messiah. Sorry. Name of G. And I kept saying that, right? And what Satan was doing was shrieking like a stuck pig. He was going, and he was frozen in the air. And he was shrieking so loud, it brought me out of the dream. I think it was not a dream. It was more of a vision. And then I don't think I was sleeping at all. I know I wasn't sleeping. It was a vision, I believe. And that's the power of the name of Yeshua. And what I'm telling you, if you carry this further, when you tell them in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach to come out of the person, then they don't. It's so painful for them in there. They're going to be going, They can't stay in there. I don't know what it does to them, but they don't like the name of Yeshua. Okay? What did he look like? He had greasy hair down to about here. It was salt and pepper. It was greasy. He looked like he was about 70, 80 years old. He had a rag smock on, or tunic, whatever you want to call it. It had it was like an over the head thing, and it had a round hole with like a V over here, and it went below the knees. And I believe he had sandals, and he was able to fly, not at any great speed, but he was moving pretty good. I don't know, 30, 40 miles an hour, something like that. Powers of the air. Why does he call them powers of the air in Ephesians 6? Because they fly in the air. Okay. I don't know what he was coming to do with me, but he never tried that crap again. If it was real, I think it was just a vision. But, they don't come around me. I mean, what would I do? I command you to go to the place unclean spirits go immediately and stay there for 10 years. B'Shem Yeshua Mashiach. That's my response. We think I'm going to hide from them or run from them or get scared. I'm not going to talk to the jackasses. I'd rather talk to my dog. My dog doesn't lie. I'd really rather talk to a dog than an unclean spirit, or say he's just going to lie to you. What do you want to talk to him for? The father of lies. Do you think he could help himself and not lie? If he ever tells truth, there's no truth in him. What truth is he going to tell? He might structure something to make it look like it's true, to sell the lie, but there's no truth in him. Why would you want to talk to him? He's just a piece of garbage. He's finished. He's been judged. He's just not sentenced. His sentence awaits. I wouldn't talk to him. I just, what would get me the most pleasure? Throwing him into the pit where demons go when you kick them out of somebody. That's the best thing I would want to do to him. Teach that little jackass a lesson. I don't like them. I don't like any of them. And I love making war on them and winning, because you're always going to win when you fight in the spirit. You start trying to fight in court or fight with the fists or fight in the flesh and this and that and yell and scream and work, plans in your head. No. You fight them in the spirit and you're going to win, because what power does the enemy have over the Holy Spirit, over Jehovah, over Yeshua? Nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing. It's a pure, straight-up victory. Knockout. Knockout in the first round. The victor, the believer. All right. My name's Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife. I spoke to her yesterday. She's doing really, really good. She's doing really good. I mean, she's getting better. I was shocked. So pray for me and my wife for a peace, safety, protection, blessing, joy. Pray for our finances. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues. They be happy, healthy, and whole. I seem to have Beulah contained, and that's good. She's pretty happy. She got herself tangled with the cable today. I had to untangle her, but she didn't get too bent out of shape. And it's nice. I don't have to look up and, is she still here? Is she still here? Where's she going? And today I'll have a harness for her to hook the cable onto the harness, so I don't have to be worried about her choking herself or something like that, If she gets over animated and she hears something or a bird, the birds are nasty here. They buzz you. Not the bird pets, the wild birds. They come down and they glance on you. I had one land on me the other day. He must have thought I was a statue or something. I don't know, a pretty stupid bird, I just shook him. He was on the arm. He just flew away. But they buzz you. They come like within an inch of you. The dogs hate it. You feel it. You feel the wind. You hear it. And, so if that happens, she'll lunge, and then she's going to pull the choke collar. So later today, I'll have a harness for her that goes around the abdomen without the neck. So if she lunges with that, it's have no effect on her, So pray for me and my wife for healing of our bodies. We really need it. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for better videos, and pray for the one follower that's going to be coming to Israel and will be here for redemption, I believe. I don't want to put the person's name out there, but pray that this person has a good, safe journey and things work out well for this person. The Lord knows who it is. Don't worry. And I hope you got something out of it, and we're going to do more of these fireside chats without the fire on spiritual warfare, unless you guys don't want me to, but I think you like them. And there's a whole lot more I could share with you, believe me. I'm out. Thank you.